Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar where together with Nancy, we will talk with you more about well-being. My name is Simon Snouter. I'm just going to quickly introduce you more about what you can expect. Later, I will introduce Nancy, and I will just briefly guide you through while people are joining this webinar, because in the first couple of minutes, it kind of takes a little bit of time for people to download the software, come inside of the webinar. So what I'm going to do now is show you briefly a little bit more about this program, about the masterclass, about other webinars that you might have seen before or might want to check out. So the title of this one is that we're going to talk about how to bounce back and be strong in 2023. And a little bit about myself first. So I have 10 years experience as in the investment industry. I have been doing master classes now for around 3 years, a variation of different topics, from crypto to well-being to corporate tax, you name it. We try to make sure that we set up some nice webinars for our for the people that attend, so that they can walk away from this feeling that they have been more enlightened, more that we add value, and that they feel that they also gain something. So you can find also the webinars later on my website, simonsnouter.com, and we also migrating them to YouTube. So including this one, the recording will be available. A little bit about myself. Personally, I'm married with 2 daughters. I'm from the Netherlands, and I'm based in Dubai. So I spoke with you about the master classes already. So this one will be also available on different platforms, because we know that a lot of people registered, but not everybody can make it on time to watch this live. So we want to give people the opportunity to watch this back, or if you want to watch this back later, you can also do that. I'm also very happy to share with you that I've done a podcast with Nancy. So Nancy Mourad and me, we have done a podcast which is now available on the video version available on YouTube, but the audio version is on all the big platforms available, such as Spotify, and there's many other podcasts there as well. But it's a different type of conversation, because we really it's just the 2 of us. But I would highly recommend to you to watch it out, to check it out, to watch it or listen to it. I think it's a good one. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that as well. So this is what you are coming for the webinar about well-being with Nancy. So Nancy is a well-being expert. She's the CEO and co-founder of Cluely. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Simon. Good afternoon.
I'm so glad that I could have you here. The floor is all yours. Thank you for joining. And yeah, this is going to be a very engaging webinar. So looking forward to do it together with you.
Sounds good. Okay. So Simon, thanks again for hosting me another time. A brief intro about myself. Thank you for making the time for the intro. So I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I come from a background at the intersection of well-being, technology, and education. I have worked in for several years with very large organizations, mainly innovating around well-being, technology, and education. And as an entrepreneur myself, I would say I can relate. So having worked in the corporate place, but also as an entrepreneur, I think the topic of well-being in the professional world is a very relatable topic for me, and we have decided to take the time today. I do have a small disclaimer that as much as I do come from a neuroscience and public health background, but I would love to consider this talk more of a chat, for me to share all the best practices that I have personally seen throughout my journey in this space, but also things I also personally practice in my daily life as a business owner and technologist. And let's make it fun and interactive. I think I would love to start with few slides, and then we will open for really, sharing and exchanging thoughts and all of that. And also, Simon, I want to remind people joining us that if they stay to a relatively meaningful time, they will also receive a certificate of attendance after this webinar. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can see your screen, and good that you mentioned this, that everybody that will attend this and will stay in this webinar will get a certificate which will be shared with you by the email that you register with. So that's an extra reason why you should be here. Of course, Nancy will have a fantastic presentation and chat with us. So Nancy, please continue.
Awesome. Okay, so here's the thing. I think, Simon, when we started talking about, wanting to do something around well-being and the professional world, one key theme kept coming back for us, and this is probably why people are either today listening to this or they decided to attend. And it's the sense of the idea that we have really gone beyond COVID somehow, but there's an over sense and feeling that we are somewhere along the way still storming our way out of the COVID and everything we've been through. So few things, if we look at what's really happening today in our world, and few key themes that have been rising and we're hearing a lot about, and a general sense of things. If I summarize it maybe in one word as a sense of starter of things, it's the whole idea that we have all, since COVID, been reassessing. And it's interesting that, it's been maybe a year or a year and a half that things lifted increasingly from a, like a logistical perspective, but it hasn't necessarily equally lifted from our mindset perspective or psychological perspective. So as an outcome of this continuous reassessment that we're seeing, whether among us or what you're hearing about from other people, came obviously probably the most famous movement that happened in the last few years, which is the Great Resignation. And then we started hearing about, all the terminology like quiet quitting. Now we're hearing about quiet hiring, actually, which is kind of, along the way of what's happening with people psychology and this whole reassessment phase that they're going through, which is the idea that in the past you used to join a company and make all that flash about it, maybe on LinkedIn or among your network, and you're seeing a kind of a side trend where people are just joining other people, maybe not necessarily sharing much about it or starting things without making that big splash, kind of also part of the outcome of we're really not sure, but we're trying and testing. And obviously the other big headline we're hearing about is lately the tech layoffs, which are partly coming as an outcome of also the whole economy and the tech industry reassessing, maybe from a different perspective, but really reassessing how cost efficient their whole business has been, and the hiring process, and the philosophy around what it means to be a tech worker. And so also the ripple effect of this is we're seeing it among friends, among people we know, people getting laid off, but also now trying to reassess what they do in their life. And then how can we not mention, when we say all of this, all the grim news that we're hearing about the global economy and are we going into recession? Are we not? One day you hear an economist saying something, the other you hear something else. And of course, I would love if you guys start, sharing your thoughts around how you're feeling in general about this overall global trend that we're living in. And having become a global society, we can truly shelter ourselves from what's happening, because you open your phone, you see it, you talk to a friend. It's very easy to reach a friend in another country and just hear about their struggle equally on another land, right? So we're truly all equally affected somehow, whether we're sitting in Dubai or the US or the Philippines or so. I liked to summarize it by saying we are storming. I don't necessarily love the word storm as much as the idea of storming. And I want to relate it back to something actually we recently come to discuss in my team as a startup. And as we form and increasingly grow our team, it's the Tuckman's model. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Tuckman effectiveness of teams model. The model has nothing to do with this slide, except that the fact that really sharing a similar trend, right? So it's a theory about when teams form, how you first really storm and bounce ideas, and there's so much chaos and someone is joining and they're trying to learn. And then as you streamline things, you move into norm and then you start performing. So the way I really see this phase we are in, it's the team forming is a bit like this big bang event that recently happened in our lives, which is COVID. And then now we are really here trying to storm and understand and make sense of all the changes that really happened, and all the novelty and things that are hitting us in our daily life. And I'm very optimistic that we are almost on the way back up, right? So it's like when you look back in history, there has always been these events. Think, the world wars and all the Big Bang events, the Black Swan, they call them, in the sense that you're living at a certain point in a certain relatively stable environment, and then something comes and hits that stability, and so you go into this phase of reassessment. So the reason I'm saying all of that is something that I personally learned in in the science of well-being, and increasingly from the psychology of this world, which is we often think when we are, you hear a lot from people about that they are struggling lately, but we only truly feel empowered to take action the more we feel it's a normalized reality. So the idea I want to take away from what I'm saying here is that if you're feeling this, you're truly not alone. We're all living through this. It's a trend. It's happening. There is a great sense of uncertainty among the most professional people, the most successful people, and it's something that looks to be very normal given what we went through. Now, here's the beauty of this. Yes, you might be, looking at this and saying, okay, but I'm still feeling not great, right? Or I'm still kind of trying to identify where I am in this life after this big kind of storming hit me as a person. Maybe already I wasn't feeling great, or already I was assessing and this big uncertainty was thrown at me. So I always love to, and what a interesting day to have the weather outside. It's raining in Dubai, and with this slide, it's perfect, right? So it is true that every time we are in a place where we feel not great, so whether it's today or whether it's a phase you're going through, we always and often tend to think and feel that the cloud will always be there, right? And I want you to think of a time where you had strong difficulties in your life, but then your life changed and you had happiness again. And so if you look back at your life, our life is always a series of difficulties, but then, you know, things that are great and amazing and good follow. So it's this ability to really see, and I had an amazing video actually that we couldn't for a technical reason project now, but I would love to I would love you to, you know, take a look at it. So I'm gonna do it here manually, which is truly the sun is always up there. It's just that sometimes we go in phases where we feel we're disoriented, we don't see the path, everything is clouded, and you just can't, you know, see beyond this cloud. While you're under the cloud, it feels so difficult. The awesome video that I wanted to show you actually is currently a super recent release on Netflix. It's called Studs, and it's about, so Jonah Hill is sitting with his psychotherapist. Really, the documentary is under the name of the psychotherapist, Phil Studs, and it's an amazing an hour and a half that you can listen to. Of course, I would say it with a disclaimer, because if you're currently going through therapy, just keep going. It's not a replacement. But truly, Jonah, what he tries to do in this documentary is shed the light on all the awesome tools that Dr. Studs gave him to overcome his depression and the path that he was on. And part of that documentary, I truly think, another disclaimer, actually, it's a very powerful one. So if you decide to watch it, maybe watch it on your own in a, you know, rather cozy setting where you can absorb everything that is being thrown in this documentary. It revolves around a series of tools that you can utilize in your daily life. And the reason I wanted to show this segment from it is around the idea of how we can break through the clouds and see the sun in our daily life. And mainly it's through practice of gratitude, but I truly would love you guys to go and see it, because I cannot express it visually. It's a very strong, powerful, highly recommended documentary. So with that said, and that in mind, I really don't know where you are today on this journey. So we're gonna share a poll. I think Simon.
Yes, Nancy, the poll is now launched. So people, if you can please select an option. So the question should be showing now. Where are you today? There's a couple of options. Option one is I'm generally feeling lost and clouded. The second option is I'm actively looking for my life path. The third one is I've been reassessing and existing paths. And then the last option is I want to go live on the beach and leave my job. Yeah, that's a good one. So please, 57% has voted. If everybody can try their best to vote, because then Nancy will have a better idea of where we are right now. So yeah, we have a large percent voted, so I'm going to close the vote. Almost 90% voted, so I'm going to close it and share the results. Here you go. Can you see it, Nancy, as well?
I'm not sure where to look. Actually, it's not popping, but feel free, Simon, to take a little bit your screen back if you want.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Do you see?
Yes.
Let me see.
So we got majority want to go live on the beach and leave it all. Amazing. I've been reassessing equally and existing and actively looking. It's good that we didn't get the probably more pessimistic outcome, which is, but also, you know, feeling lost and clouded is part of the journey as well. And would love to hear more about the people who are either reassessing, actively looking, and even what are you, which beach are you going? Where did you decide at the end of the day? So, okay, great to understand a little bit what's, you know, where you guys are. Now here's another important thing I want to talk about. So wherever you are on your journey, right? You can be really lost, you can be just trying to reassess, you can be super confident of your path. The truth is we always get tired somewhere, right? So even maybe from the beach you will get tired, right? So life is this, you know, series of stages, and collectively I would say globally today it seems like we're all somewhere and somehow tired. Can you see my screen?
I cannot see your screen yet. Maybe you
Okay,
need to open up your, yeah, perfect.
yeah, so the idea is, I mean, if we recap on what I was saying, so it seems like we're all globally somehow reassessing somewhere. And one big personal, you know, favorite idea to always, and it has always empowered me to continue and pursue development, if you want, and really reach my goals. But also, if you look at the history, truly the history rewards the believers, people who continue and persist despite everything. And I mean, I can drop a very rhetorical question here, but what is the meaning of life if we don't see this path, and or at least try to find it, actively find it, and keep going, right? So do we have another option? That's always the question. And the option of moving forward doesn't always come as a straight line. It can be, you know, Simon, it can be pausing, getting tired, and then continuing, gaining momentum. The main and most important point for us to always remember is to keep going. And at the same time, the idea of being human and tired and, you know, vulnerable is very important to keep in mind. And what I'm trying to say as a summary, if you want, it's not a black and white. Just because I'm tired does not mean that I have failed in life. Just because there's a cloud today that I'm seeing and I can't necessarily clearly see the sun, that I am not going to see it tomorrow. So a very strong and powerful way of thinking and a mindset that seems to have accompanied most science in well-being and most therapists across or throughout these decades of us studying psychology is the idea of being soft on what you're feeling, but also keeping that consistency and belief of the ability of moving forward and moving forward successfully. I always love to bring up the concept of essentialism. It's a book that personally changed my life. Simon, we had a podcast recently and I also spoke about it. And I really think, I often think of big concepts, not necessarily as books, but really guiding principles to a successful, meaningful life. And so far, essentialism has been one of the biggest concepts that I personally have come through, implemented, and saw the amazing outcome of. And I truly think that in these times where we are so cluttered with so much noise, this concept can't be truer and more powerful than ever. If you are interested in knowing more, we're going to talk on the next slide about a few things around it, but those are my thoughts. Whereas if you want to go and dig deeper in the book is, you can find it online or in any library. It's a New York Times best-selling author. It's amazing. You can finish it in maybe 3 weeks. And the core idea of the essentialism is, how do you move your mindset and how do you move your life from a cluttered place to this. And if we go back a little bit to the previous idea, this means seeing a path, right? And or actually trying to forge a path, because sometimes chaos or actually order doesn't mean you see the path super clear, but you're on the right track to do it. But if we can't declutter, if we can't focus, there's always a chance you go through life reactive, right? Always having this lack of clarity, waking up every day. We were saying the other day in the podcast, if you put your phone and you let it be, it will let you be the whole day. And so think of all the other aspects of your life and how easy it is to be taken by things that come our way. By the way, it happens to the rather more successful people, because you are just, the more successful you get, the more serious you get about achieving things in life, the more projects you start getting your way and being hit by. And so how do you gain this space? How do you gain this resilience and clarity in your mind to know exactly either where you're going or where you want to know where you're going? So few ways to declutter, few things to keep an eye on, to, if you want to replace this clutter with clarity, if you have been feeling this, is truly to eliminate what feels like a noise and taking a space of your soul and life, and replace it with what feeds your soul. And I'm not saying that necessarily this will overnight take you to clarity, but it's definitely the way to clarity and building resilience. So really think of how many times we say yes to projects, to work, to tasks that fill our time with just the chaos without necessarily either driving us to the path that we belong to or we think we should be exploring. And the idea is, if you don't have your path very clear, these projects will keep coming, right? Because there's so much attractiveness out there. You can be playing the guitar, you can be, traveling, you can be, I don't know, going with a friend on a business trip to help them. You can be doing so many things in your life, but if these don't feed into your personal path, these are distractions, and they're really going to impact your well-being negatively. The second one is about people. And as much as I'm very, I look at this topic it's not really black and white, because I'm a bit against the idea of eliminating people for the sake of eliminating them. I think people have good in them, irrespective. It's just that the idea that sometimes there are people who don't fit your soul. They might be amazing for other people. They might sound super positive for other people. But for you, when they don't fit your soul, when you don't feel good around them, this is another energy that comes your way and kind of takes away from your well-being, whether in the moment, whether after you see them. How many times you go sit sometimes with people and after you leave them, you feel like there's a big, rock that you're trying to remove after that chat. So keep an eye on those interactions. And I would say it's important to not underestimate what their impact is on you as a person, even after leaving you. The effect can take few days, few weeks, sometimes months. Obviously, the younger you are, the bigger the effect they take. But with age, you start being able to shelter yourself from what you hear and you don't necessarily want to take in. But it's also very important, even as an older person, to truly know who you are sitting with, what kind of energy you're taking in. Number 3 is, I think, I would rather not even call it social media as much as the internet itself, right? Probably the most prominent topic or prominent platforms that you use are social media. And if you have today a feed that is distracting you on a daily basis with, I really like to say that I'm feeling great and then I check into Instagram and my day is ruined. That's a bit a summary of what I'm trying to say here, in the sense that if you follow, influencers that you don't care necessarily about what they're saying or their lifestyle, something, when you look at a certain post can come back with a certain energy for you. You don't have to have it. You can simply unfollow. I've personally gone into a very, very strong decluttering process in my journey. And I today personally just follow thought leaders that I feel I learned from them. Very business oriented topics, very, very psychological topics. And I'm not saying that, maybe influencers in certain field are having a great added value. It's just they're not for me and they don't make me feel good, and I'm not interested to interact with this content. So content has gone beyond being content as much as it's truly the food for your thought, because it's what your brain is getting every single day. So how you clear that brain and claim back your space is highly affected by what you're waking up to every day and this piece of information that you're allowing your brain to receive and being influenced by. And I would add to this, frankly, any distraction that is not contributing to your path. And if you put down a list now after this talk and just, list some things that you feel negative around or that is not contributing to your path, I'm sure you will find at least 3 or 4. And so the question is, what do you do with them? Now, here's the thing. It's not enough to just eliminate, because then, okay, your life is moving towards being more empty, and emptiness is also not great for purpose. So increasingly getting into what is good for your soul is also going to get you closer to realizing that purpose, or identifying it in clearer ways and faster ways. So if I replace the people with that I feel negative about, who do I replace them with? The way I truly personally have sensed an amazing value of connecting, it's always about connecting with 2 types of people who empower you and or inspire you. So people who empower you can be super close family, super close friend, a partner. And people who inspire you can be not necessarily that close to you. They can be, maybe you want to meet an entrepreneur who's ahead of you of your journey, or if you are in the corporate world, try to reach out to somebody that you think is more senior, but they can help you and mentor you and help you thrive further. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a super close friendship, but sometimes sitting with an inspiring person for you and who kind of gets you a positive energy and kind of motivational for you can truly have a strong impact on decluttering your sense of question mark about things, right? So insight, but also feeling great about it. We spoke about social media and, the idea of not only just eliminating that, but filling it with meaningful ideas, meaningful people, and, all the influencers that can, I think there are amazing voices today, truly. And there's so much to learn from the internet. And this is where because early on, we spoke about social media, and I don't necessarily think it's purely social media that is distracting people. There's so much going on the internet. But the idea is, how do you replace mindless scrolling with intentional learnings? All of you today on this talk or watching it have made an intentional effort to kind of invest in an area that you really feel like you want to get more insight about. So how do you become more intentional about learning instead of just receiving knowledge from here and there? This is another important And there's so much going on, whether online, offline, talks, podcasts, you know, great insight from great leaders. Try to focus there. Spending time alone, and I say it with a disclaimer because not too much also, right? Because spending time alone too much can come back negatively and clutter your brain with just ideas that are running in your brain that you can't untangle. So, but it's also very important when you find this need to be alone to truly take the time to be alone, irrespective if you have family in the house or, you know, you feel like your life is so busy. Always trying to make time alone, but also another important thing for the brain, and all the science is leading to us understanding the importance of wandering and just doing nothing and being bored to the creativity of the brain. One simple example I always, you know, like to give, a lot of the times when I take a like a ride like in Uber or Careem, and I sit in the back, there are two things you can do. You can either take your phone, check your email, you know, text a colleague, or, you know, do something around work or a friend. But what I love when I don't do that is that when I look outside of the window and I truly just think of nothing, how all the ideas that have been in my subconscious come out, and I start thinking and creating, and I'm like, okay, I'm back home, or I reach my destination and I start writing what came up. So it's very important to eliminate some really core practices and replace them with few other things, and keep always in mind that this clarity is this process, if you want, is a continuous thing you do. It's not something that we've done and it's a one time. It's a way of life, right? It's a way of building and always taking action. So here's the if you want, the core takeaway from this idea or this slide is we gotta take action towards what we want to achieve, because it seems, and you know, history is the biggest witness to that, and also the science around well-being is the biggest witness to that. It seems that inaction is the biggest enemy of mankind. Inaction is the biggest enemy of well-being. Inaction is what creates anxiety. It's what creates you know, a sense of hopelessness, that I don't know what's I don't have a clear path of my life. And when I say take action, I'm a big believer in the idea of action reaction. So sometimes you take action, and I'm gonna take an example. Sometimes you know, I'm thinking of a person to contact for my business, right? So, and I don't know what the outcome will be. So you think of that person and you start saying, should I contact them? Should I not? What will be the outcome? What will happen? What if they did that? What if they weren't good for my business? What if, you know, this person got upset? And the antidote of success, if you want, is to stay stuck in that place. So just take that action and contact that person and see what you get. Sometimes you get a good answer, sometimes you get no answer, sometimes you get a bad kind of feedback in general, right? So taking action in small increments is truly what keeps us going, is what collectively makes the path clearer and clearer and clearer, and along the way enable it with all these if you want amplifiers of what gets you to this clarity as you are taking action. I would love to, yeah, I think this is a bit also around what we were talking about, the your diet, right? So your diet, as much as it's physically important about what we eat, what makes us, what also makes us, what brings clarity to us, what brings this path forward, is also, you know, what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, and the people you hang out with. So really the importance of being mindful there, about what we put in our body, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I think I'm gonna wrap up here, Simon, and if we have questions or thoughts.
Yeah, that was great presentation, and was not really a presentation. I felt like there were so many times things that I wanted to jump in. I'm like, hey, yes, that's something I've been thinking about, or that sounds relatable to me. So let's start first with interaction of the audience, because I got a comment/question from Ahmed, that was early on in the which he said, when you were talking about layoffs, that's happening now thousands of miles away. Google, Microsoft, they're mentally resonating with employee workforce in the Middle East. So basically, he is jumping into what you were saying. And anybody that wants to ask Nancy something or wants to jump on this and ask or say something, please join this conversation. So Nancy, so what? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that, about the layoffs that are happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's a question or like a discussion, but we can talk a little bit about it. I think there's a general, there had been a general trend in the tech world. I would say largely in the US, but it's also the same tech companies around the world, where the hiring process, and it's always a part of a high growing startup that becomes a very established tech company, which today we know as big tech. It's the idea of hiring and growing big, right? So hiring fast, growing big, not thinking too much necessarily about the exact number of resources that we're hiring, and how all the resources fit in the right structure and for the right needs. And because these brands have been highly funded and uh, you know very attractive to talent, there was this optimal if you want, outcome whereby a lot of people joined, and it was possible for these companies to hire them. So, but then as an outcome of the economy moving into becoming more stringent, if you want, more cautious, whether it's the COVID, whether what's happening globally with the war in Europe, different factors in our current 2023, I would say, and 2022, there has become a certain need to kind of reassess the overall strategy of hiring, retaining, the overall structure. When tech companies looked at, and I know most of these companies are, the talent that is leaving these companies is fantastic and amazing. But in many times when they looked at the need for this talent, the FTE was, if you want, the employment was not equally justified, and the financing of this headcount was not necessarily justified for the continuity of these companies. And sometimes it's also being done, when one starts, the rest follow. I mean, whether it's legitimate, whether sometimes it's not legitimate, it's just an overall wave taking over the tech world. And I guess at some point, if you don't do it, it feels like, okay, maybe you are wasting money, or like, why are you standing out from the rest? If X and Y did it, then why you don't do it, right? So, yeah. But I truly think there had been, over the last 20 years, a lot of hiring that maybe was not as needed or as justified, and it's kind of in correction of the market.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I agree with you on that, and I think one of the key points of your talk were, are you going to take control of your own life, or are you going to let others take control over your life? Now, what if somebody has not a strong personality? What if somebody has fear inside that they can control is difficult, like blockades? How can you advise? What would you advise somebody with small steps to make a start?
Yeah, so I think, so the question is about someone with a strong persona or just in general?
No, somebody with no, somebody that doesn't have a strong personality, that is fearing, for example, what if I take more, what if I say no at my work and take more time for
Mm.
myself? What will my boss think about this? What will other people think about this? So how can somebody with small steps make a start to prioritize themselves first, what they really need in this life?
Amazing. This is a very difficult question, Simon, because as much as it's simple, it's also, I think, it's not difficult to achieve. It's just difficult for me to wrap my head and kind of because there are so many things around it, right? So first of all, it all goes back, if I really like think about it in the most simplistic way, it all goes back to how much do you truly value and self-value yourself, right? So it all starts with the idea of self-belief and knowing that you are worthy as a person and creating a life that truly gives you what you think you are worthy of. Now, this definitely is a very, very, very deep topic because it goes back to your childhood, it goes back to upbringing. Sometimes, I wouldn't say sometimes, it's probably 100% of the times that we all need some sort of hand holding to, and what I mean by that is therapy and the right support system and the right learning materials. So it's a combination of few things between a human, a human with a professional ear who will get you there, and it might take you years to get it, but also how you amplify your brain and your insight by learning things online, by sitting with people, your daily micro learning, what you are taking in every day, the podcast you're listening to, the articles, etc. So now when you get there and when you start feeling you are worthy of pushing back on things that don't necessarily meet your value or are gonna help you get onto your path, this is where you start feeling able to take action. And then taking action becomes really simple. I truly think claiming your life back or claiming your value is the harder part. For it is to realize first that you don't necessarily perceive yourself highly, so you accept things because of your self-esteem that are not good for you, right? So you accept things or you accept to do things for others that are not great for you. So once you realize and once you go through that process of self-realization that of your self-worth and what you truly want out of this world and what suits what you care about, then it becomes very easy to push back. Now, as much as this sounds, high level and not like maybe a bit philosophical, but it's truly the way that I haven't seen anyone in life who got into what they want the right way, right? The legitimate way in life without having to understand their self-value and really ask for it. You gotta ask for things all the time. No one will ever, don't ever go through life thinking that people will give you what you want, because people don't know what you want. You have to ask for it. And so starting from the idea that you deserve something, and then you ask for it. And then if you don't get it, then you understand two things. If you get a no, right? You understand that maybe it's not my place, maybe I need to be elsewhere. Or you also look at it from a sense of I would say, understanding sometimes, and the patience, because places sometimes might be good for you, but timing of asking for something might not. As long as, I would say, you are proactive, you share what you are, you communicate what you expect, and then whatever happens from there becomes truly the answer for what you think you deserve, right?
Yes. No. No. I think maybe people can proactively say more to others what they want. So just open up and in
Yeah.
whatever way possible. Don't try to be aggressive. Just say, is it possible that I can get XYZ? Would you be able to accommodate me? If you're scared to do it face to face, do it by email first, and then you can follow up face to face. But try, like Nancy says, try to ask for it, because people cannot read other people's mind, and everybody's different. Everybody gets motivated differently. Um, that is really true. Now, another point which you were talking about earlier was about energy of people. Now, I used to be very scientific and etc., and I don't want to discuss this in the past because I was like, I cannot quantify it, I cannot measure it. But more and more, the more I let that go, the more actually enlightening I become, and more enlightening in the sense that I don't have assumptions about this, and I just let things flow. And energy is something that I'm very interested in for the past couple of years. And um, I've come to the stage even where I am saying, even family, if you don't have the right energy, I will still respect you, but please respect my space. And let's meet, when your energy is good. When you say about this energy part, I'm such an advocate of it. I seriously want people to try to make an effort about to read the energy in the room. Are people coming and giving you good energy? Are people bringing good energy? Are you bringing good energy to other people? So can you talk a little bit more about that, Nancy? Because that is really a great topic.
Yeah, and Simon, thank you for starting with this whole idea of, being scientific and being able somehow to, find what we're talking about in a, Western book, or I don't know, like, and I personally come also from, a scientific background. I'm a biologist. I was always about how can we, no, if this is not documented, it doesn't exist, right?
Exactly.
So, but I truly think we haven't scratched the surface of this universe knowledge, and you start seeing actually the reason why I think we're all collectively coming to acknowledge that there is the power of energy. Is When I look back, I think it's something that people always felt, but the world of the internet and social media, and how more and more people started talking about this topic, it's like the wisdom of the crowd coming together and saying, oh, by the way, we're all sensing something. It's like that we are assessing a certain hypothesis that still does not have a book or an experiment done about it. There are actually scientific labs around the world currently studying the science of telepathy and all of that. But obviously, because it's not something we can clearly touch, like the regular, let's say, soil that you can study from a chemistry perspective, I wouldn't be surprised if it takes way longer than the revolution of science of the last 200 years. But it seems like we have come to a place where we all observe that there is a big power of energy, and the whole idea of when you sit with people, how you feel, but also when you think of people and they contact you or vice versa. I'm a big believer in that. I mean, I think the universe is way bigger than us and our understanding, and the whole universe revolves with energy, right? So the way it
Yeah.
started was a big bang of an energy. So, and I'm not gonna go there now for for us to avoid going into any, controversial talk. But as a scientist, it's for me, it's all a dynamic energy flowing among us, and we got created through energy, and we exude energy, right? So now, if we want to talk about and another thing is also something now emerging a lot, which is your gut feeling, right? So this nervous system in your gut that speaks to your brain, and then we say it in a very abstract sense, but it's true. You have a sense of what people tell you, what the intuition you get about people is always true. Your gut has ability to know things that maybe your brain is not being able to tell you exactly what it is. So irrespective of, you know, the anatomy and where this is coming, it's always coming from your brain, right? But the idea is follow, like you were saying, follow your feeling, because your feeling is the truest. Sometimes I can be telling you, Simon, this person is amazing, but you look at them and you're like, I don't feel they are good for me. I don't sense, Nancy, what you're telling me. Maybe you feel he's amazing. I don't feel it, right? So if he's not good for you, just he can be good for other people. So trust your inner gut always.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've learned my hard lesson on that, and more, you know, that's you, when you listen to that, that's a very good one about the gut feeling, for example. Yeah, that's and most of the time you're right, actually. Most, because if you do listen to your gut feeling early, they were trying to give you warnings, but you need to be receptive towards that. You need to be able to receive the signals that are sent. Uh, and if you're just closed completely, then your mind or your body can send you a lot of signals, but yeah, they will never be received. So Nancy,
Agree.
we have not even scratched the surface because time has flown already. We're already 1 hour later. The same thing happened with our podcast. Before we know, an hour flies away. But we need to end it. I want to thank you so much for coming here and sharing your knowledge and your experience, and with the people live here, and also with the people that will watch the recording later tomorrow or the day after at another stage. So thank you, Nancy, so much.
Thank you, Simon, for having me, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, and thank you for the people that were live. Thank you for participating. I hope you enjoyed it. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Nancy.
Bye. Bye, Simon.